Greetings, one and all. It's Taco Tuesday. Chris Courtney here, Feedback Loop. So good to have you along for this edition. It's Super Tuesday, Taco Tuesday. Super Tuesday here in the United States, Taco Tuesday for everybody else. And I am super excited to get this underway because we've got a lot of people submitting work today. Abraham making the rare appearance. Welcome back, Abraham. Good to see you. Tedgel's in here. Kara's in here. Rebecca's in here. So I'm super excited to move forward today. We've got a number of things that we're going to look at, and I just want to remind everybody, if you're watching this and you're taking part in the new Pragmatic program, it's always good to see you in daily stand-up. Daily stand-up. Sometimes we forget about daily stand-up, but it helps me understand where you might be getting stuck, and it kind of it's an opportunity every day to fire up a flag in the event that you're having an issue. And hey, we're all learning new things here. Oftentimes we do have issues that pop up, but I'm going to go ahead and get underway. I know yesterday I monologued quite a bit. So I'm going to go ahead and share my screen, and let's do this thing. So, you know what? We're going to start with Abraham. Abraham is working on, he's basically working on the hero unit for his portfolio. And Abraham, I want to encourage you. What I'm seeing here is you're here in the illustration. And that's great. I really like the illustration. It's fine. I've always also liked the simplicity of the logo. I've always thought that was really smart. But I want to focus here on the typography because you're combining typefaces that really are very structurally similar. And you know, my issue when I was talking about the typefaces that you were using over here, and my issue was mainly that, well, it looks like you've even adjusted a little from here, but you had a number of instances where things were just like down here, things were just like tracked out, and that's where you have letter spacing, like pushing the typography out horizontally. I really didn't think that was an effective usage. But here the problem that I'm running into is these typefaces, there's just not a lot of contrast to them. So you've got Montserrat and Open Sans paired together. Here you have Montserrat in a medium, which is a little better, and Open Sans again, very similar. Here you have Futura. Yeah, Futura Lohit. I haven't run into that one, and Open Sans. And I want to encourage you to pop over here to, this is actually listed first in the interface exercise type 2. And I've got a lot of resources here for combining fonts. One of them right up here on top is from us, Insta Guide to Pairing Type. And one of the things that I point at in this guide is specifically contrast. Structural contrast, we're looking at the width similarity in how we combine serifs and sans serifs, but also, this is looking at serifs and sans serifs and how you should, when you have serifs and sans serifs that you're pairing, I always like to get structural width to be similar between the two, rather than to have these wide differences. But when you're pairing elements that are similar, like sans serifs together or serifs together, I like to make sure that we have plenty of contrast between them. So here's Montserrat and Railway, where PT Sans Narrow and Proxima Nova pair pretty well together. So when we come back over and we look at, let's hop up here. When we look at this Open Sans, this is a little narrower, but it's not dramatically narrower. It If anything, I would flip these and I would go with Montserrat down below and a much narrower headline or much narrower display on your name, because you want that contrast. Or I would just play them in the same and use weight to give you that contrast. But right now, I mean, I really wouldn't advise using Open Sans and Montserrat together. And you've done that here in a few places, and here you've used, instead of pairing two, you've got three in here, and it's just like, I think you're really fighting to pair typography successfully. So I would suggest coming over here, acquainting yourself with this, maybe even going through the exercise where we do some pairing of typography, and you can hop over here to Figma, where we have the type specimen and pairing exercise for new Pragmatic students. Maybe you hop over there and work through that exercise. Everybody going through the interface design portion of the program goes through this battery of exercises. And if you're not familiar, we have a lot of exercises now piling up over on figma.com/@newpragmatic. So that is an excellent way to begin exercising your really more visually centric design skills, although a lot of this focuses on interface design specifically. So moving right along, Tejal, we've got, and I wanted to check on and to see where we were with Tejal's she had her I want to hop back and look at yesterday, because I know we had a link. She had passed along a link to her. Yeah, there it is. I want to check out her portfolio and see if they got updated. It did get updated. Yay. All right. So this is important. I wanted to pull this up because you have a style featured here on your portfolio, and I love the animation work here. But you have a style here featured, and when I come over here and look at your resume, it feels like a radically different world from your portfolio. And my goal, so there's a couple things I want to mention. One, when you're submitting your resume to a job, you want to make sure that this resume is what you're going to hand them when you go in for the interview. This is not the resume you're going to actually send in for the position, because of the applicant tracking systems. They can't read this. They get thrown off by little bits of line. They get thrown off by the icons here, the alphabet starters that you've created here. All of that's going to break the applicant tracking system, and so I would keep that in mind as you move forward. I mean, I've got a plain version of my resume ready to go, no logos or anything. And that said, so we have that. You're just going to have a Google Doc that you send over. This just doesn't feel like this. Now I don't think you have to like copy it, style for style in that. Oh yeah, I've got the outlined type, and then I've got the filled in type. But I do think that I would use that typography on this resume to tie the two together. I think your personal statement here is probably a little long. I think we can if I come in here and I zoom in, I think we can tighten up this design. So I'm just going to drag that over. I would align my typography. I don't really care where the bottom of that line is, the bottom of the icon, but I would align my typography up across. And this is, again, talking specifically about the design of the fully designed resume, I would look at my spacing. So my spacing here is too tall compared to what's down here below. I would at least make it equal, if not default to have this closer to the top and allow more space below. I would look out for things like this. You know, I really want these little labels that you've created to match up with the width of the text, which means that line should be out here. And then I think you're going to have to take space away from the other side. If you leave it like this at all, everything needs to migrate over. You've got, Webflow hangs out over here. This down here is all fine, but it definitely could use the additional space. And I would flip these. I would, I'd leave them. They're just they're a little awkward. It's like they're missing the dash, the classic dash that would tell you what this span was. Because it is weird, 2018 to 2020, and then I get down here and it's 2012 to 2018. I know, but it feels like the sequential order is thrown off. And I would almost say 2018 to present, because you're doing the Studio T Creative, 2012 to 2018. I don't know. That's like splitting hairs. I think the much bigger issue here is getting some of these alignment issues sorted out, getting the spacing here sorted out, spacing here, and then also making sure that you have a version of this that is prepared for those tracking systems. And a lot of people will ask, well, what do I do? What do I do with this version? And I would say that if you can send over, I would send over two. I would send over one that's just, where it says submit resume, submit the Word file, the Google Doc, like the plain resume. And then, generally speaking, they have addendums, like you can submit another file. I would submit this with that so that you're covering all your bases. Sometimes I would even, if you can't submit that, I would update the resume to say, download full resume at, and then you could attach that somewhere, maybe even in the personal statement, so that whoever's looking at that, the plain resume, knows there's another one out there, and they'll seek it out if they feel like there's more to it, and the more to it is you're displaying your design skills. But I really think that this needs to sync up and tie up with the typography and style that you've established, and I don't think this does that at the moment. What about the content of the resume? I'd also go through and edit these quote marks so that they're actual quote marks. That's some of these editing programs, they just do a really terrible job. Well, it already says that you're from Orlando, Florida here, you're product designer. So I think we got all that. I that first line, I think it's in the things at the top. I really think my approach is dynamic while also keeping clarity and balance in mind. I'm passionate about improving the lives of others through design and constantly looking to learn new things. With my background in media production, I strive to bring storytelling and delight to design. I've been fortunate to work for these companies. I'm currently looking for a full-time position in product design. I would want this line like bolded, italicized, set off a little bit from the rest of it, just to make sure it shines through. Also, I talk about this quite a bit. The Bringhurst rule of 66. which is this rule that nothing should be more than 66 characters wide on a page. This is definitely going over that. It's full width. Like typically, this is one reason why I use 2-column designs typically on resumes, so that I can basically have this like this wide. Oftentimes, I will stack information strategically. And actually, let's just go over here real quick. Resume. Actually, I think I've still got it in Figma if I'm familiar, or if I'm recent. Yeah, so we've looked at updated resumes. I do a lot of I use mine for proposals and things like that. So I've got some proposals that I've written over here. But as you can see, when you look at my resume, I've got a 2-column design set up specifically so that I never get trapped in that width issue, which I think is hamstringing this a bit. It's not the worst thing in the world because you've limited it to like a paragraph, but like I would not want to see a full page at that width ever. So just keep that in mind. I'm gonna need to like dive in and read through all of this. This is bullet point stuff. So we've talked a little bit about that. I'm also curious, from a size perspective, why this information would be set. Looks like a point size larger than that information. I also want to look at this like baseline grid. Like I'm not seeing any alignment. I'm not seeing any alignment like across. Like that's getting close. But, is this set on 10? Is it set on 8? I don't know. This looks like it's set larger than that. I'm not sure why. So this I think is fine. I want to get rid of the first line. I want to bold this or call attention to this one. And then I need to dive in and read through all of this material. So I do want to do that as well. So moving on, let's jump into, and I know we've got a call coming up, but I would try to like tie these two together, and I'm not talking about bringing that salmon color over. I think black and white's the way to go, but I'm talking about typographic style. Like how do we marry these two things together? Because at some point you will probably link to that from here, and it should feel familiar. Okay, Kara has submitted actually her accessibility work, and I want to start over here because oddly enough, it's really easy to tell what's going on when we put Color Oracle to work. So I'm going to go ahead and just throw this into, I need to zoom out. Basically what happens when we do Color Oracle is we should see these change, like you probably can't see it right from zoomed out, but, and I'll hide that so we can zoom in a little more. This yellow, there's something clearly missing between the two, like something some sort of method that the eye is coloring this yellow so that it shows up more pure. The same, like the pink is missing from the background. The standard version is always on the right in this exercise. The blue is missing from the background. The yellow and red, the yellow goes to pink here. So the question is, what's happening? Well, let's go up here to Color Oracle, and let's throw this into the most common of vision or color vision impairments, and you can see 1 doesn't quite line up, 2 is pretty close, 3 is dead on, and 4 looks pretty close as well. So what we have here is this is what's called known as deuteranopia. And deuteranopia is basically where you lack the ability to see certain reds, and you can see that very clearly from how this pink just goes away. Okay, so and this affects, or I'm sorry, it's weird. It says it's a green deficiency, but it appears to me like it makes the red go away. But this affects 5% of all males. I have had students before discover color blindness in a design class before. So it was in a physical classroom. I've never had anybody actually discover their color blindness online. But one thing I would say is it's easier for you to be able to see what it's like to be missing that ability to see color with these online tools that we have now. It used to be very difficult. You had to basically kind of manipulate an image to show, and we now have tools that allow us to do this. So like, let's go look at the protanopia. And you can see now this is dead on. You can tell by that like weird purple, and this is red. It's a red deficiency. And you can see that most vividly from how the red just goes to gray. And this is tritanopia. So let's take a look and see what's happening there. And you can see that it's a blue deficiency, but what's really interesting is how the yellow changes to a pink with tritanopia. So that's just a quick look at how vision impairment, color impairment works. And the whole point of this exercise is to make us aware of what it's like for somebody who has a vision problem or color deficiency, and what it's like for them to go through the world. Because if there's anything that I've learned, it's that you can't just assume that everybody can see the world the same way you can see it, and your awareness of that will have you making certain decisions differently. Same thing stands for sites that just are lacking contrast. And one of the things that we've done here is, if we come in and we look at Stark, and unfortunately Stark always, actually it's just Figma that always does this to me. Figma always throws a fit when I try to get the contrast checker out. And you can see that using Stark, when we click on the type, this just fails all forms of contrast. And I'm going to guess this is going to do the same thing for us. And it does. There's just no contrast there at all. If we do this, sorry, I forgot this. You got to select the two layers. I was wondering why it was coming up contrast 1:1, but this is 1.35 to 1. This is terrible contrast. And this, by the way, is the working site. This is the same contrast the working site has on it. Okay? So this is not me just making up the assignment and using this. This is actually, I'm pulling these poor contrast examples from real sites. Same thing for Incredible. Incredible here, this was the design that was being utilized. And if we go in here to the plugins and look at how Stark is treating it. Oh, sorry. That's the colorblind simulation. Of course, I can't see it, so I got to zoom out and come back in. So here we are. We're using Stark. Let's go to Stark Contrast Checker. And you can see it's almost okay for large text, but this isn't large text. This is the small text. So it's terrible for the small text. It fails both criteria. So to see what happens here, obviously, Kara's bright. She's like, well, let's change that on the black. And you would think, yeah, just change it to black. That's the obvious solution here. But if that was the obvious solution, why is this site in existence? Like, why is that online? And it's because people weren't thinking about the contrast that was showing up on their site. So obviously, change it to black. Same thing here. It's like, don't use a light gray on the back, or don't use a light gray on a black background. Here it works fine. And it's simply because she amped up the contrast and said, all right, let's make it white. Just make it white text on black. And I say this again, and I'll say it till I'm blue in the face. Does that seem like it's obvious? Yes. Are these made-up examples? No, they're from real sites. Okay? So as much as I can, there's a book I'm reading right now called The Infinite Game. The Infinite Game. And in the Infinite Game, Simon Sinek is basically writing about how the corporate structure is broken. Okay? And there was a Scottish philosopher who basically wrote up the fundamental tenets of democracy, and he said, this is so clear to me, and not democracy, capitalism. He said, this is so clear to me that I'm not even going to bother to prove it to you. I'm not even going to bother to write anymore. I'm not going to bother to try to prove its value because it is self-evident. And a lot of, I will hear from people all the time, well, it's self-evident that you should just turn this to black. It's self-evident that this should just be white. But yet, I can go online, and typically within like six sites, find one that fails a contrast test. So for us, I have us go through this because I want to make sure that we are recognizing that this is not self-evident to everybody, okay? It's self-evident to us because we're designers, okay? And one of the things that we have to do as designers is we have to bring people along in our organizations. We can't just assume that they're going to get it. We have to bring them along. And part of bringing them along is having tools like Color Oracle, like Stark, at our disposal so we can go, listen, this doesn't pass X test. And because it doesn't pass X test, I really don't believe we should put white text on a light blue background. I don't believe we should put gray text on a black background, because there are people out there that can't read that. And we should make our sites accessible to all. And a lot of people, they conflate accessibility only with what we do in code. Okay? They forget that a lot of what we do with accessibility has to do with decisions that can be made earlier than code, just by color choice, contrast. And we can build a lot of great accessible decisions into our final designs before we get to the code. You can't fix a bad design with code. You can code up a bad design, but you can't fix it with code. So I want us making smart decisions about contrast and about color selection before we get to code. Okay? So additionally, Kara writes, I would also suggest making the background color a dark gray instead of black, because the laptop is getting lost. And to be honest, maybe, sure, that's fine. That is more of a judgment call. I could go there with you, or I could leave it alone. Whatever. I'm fine. I'm more concerned with this over here. And your solution there, spot on. That's exactly what we needed to do. Let's go over here because we have the structural adjustments. And here, basically, the concept is a lot of times when things are unavailable, we have this habit of just like graying something out. Like, oh, I'm going to leave it there, but I'm going to make it a little gray, and then everybody, that'll work. Well, what happens if somebody's eyesight just turns everything gray? Like, well, I want the potato meal. Oh, I'm sorry, sir, that's not available. But why is it on the menu? Oh, it's grayed out. I'm colorblind. Everything's grayed out. Oh. So that's why we need to do something more like this, where we're being very clear, and you could leave it gray if you want to. I mean, I'm not trying to say that you can't have gray in it for everybody else. I am saying you want to strike through it. You want to add the sold out. You want to add the X button. You want to add what? Like, there's a lot of things you could add to it. Any of these would have worked. All right, I'm not against it at all. You've added a circle here, and then here it says sold out, so that's drawing a little more attention to the sold out, which I think is fine. The big goal is that you're doing more than just saying, oh, it's grayed out. You're being clear and direct about it, you know. And some people will say, well, that's just not really elegant design. This is not a place where I'm trying to go for elegant design. This is a place where I'm trying to go for clear communication. I will take clear communication with a user in trying to produce an accessible experience for somebody over a refined design every day of the week. I will. I think it's right by the user. And our only goal here is to do right by the user. That's it. It's real simple. Now, are there ways to be elegant and accessible? Absolutely. I think there are a lot of examples out there. But this meets the criteria. For me, this meets the criteria. So, whether it's colorized, which you have it colorized, or whether it's grayed out, and all I'm really looking at is can I make it very clear to somebody that this is not available, and you've done that. Over here on the pizza tracker had another problem in that, if things are grayed out, if I have that green that inability to see the color green, this is all going to be a problem. And let's actually throw that on here. This is a problem. The only thing that's indicating where it is the dots. All right. So, that's not enough for me to understand what's happening. So what Kara's done below is she's used the weight of the outline and the darkness of the outline to show you where. She's also replaced the icon with check marks. She's also bolded the typography. So she's done everything that she can do. I mean, you could also underline it. You could remove you can remove the line going over to ready. There's quite a few things that you could do to push it forward. I think that you've done a lot of things to push it forward, and I'm fine with it. But you should be able to see, if you're with me and you're looking at this, you should be able to see the difference between version 1 and version 2. And again, I really think, this isn't my decision. This is Color Oracle's decision. All right? I can't look at it without putting it through Color Oracle. I can't look at that and tell you if it's a good solution because I can see the colors. But when I take the colors away, when I rob myself of the ability to see the color, and I realize my face is over where the definition, so I do apologize about that. But when I take away the color and I can see it as if I was suffering from that condition, I now can see what I would prefer to have. I would prefer to have Kara's solution versus the original solution. The original solution is from a pizza tracker of a very well-known company. So I think they have like 3,000 locations. So you can probably figure out which one of the 3 or 4 pizza restaurants in the United States that might be. So good job there, Kara. I think you've hit it on all cylinders there. Onward into Color for Work. I'm super excited to see what you do there. And let's take a look at Rebecca's logo. So I'm actually in the midst of working on a logo project right now. You're getting a peek at a presentation I'm doing tomorrow on actually it's a project called Circuit, and I'm trying to figure it's actually about circuit courts. And I'm trying to. This is very CBS 1970 special presentation. So this feels very 70s, but it is the color scheme of the company that's paying me to do this. So I'm kind of playing with the C because it's Circuit Court Chicago. Or it's Circuit Court Cook. So it's actually Circuit Court of Cook County. And so technically I could have 4 C's in there if I wanted to. But the project is called The Circuit, but it's literally Circuit Court of Cook County. And I guess I could put another C in there. I don't really want to put another C in there, to be completely honest with you. I like the 3 C's. And I realize people are going to say, well, Chris, isn't that what you do over here? Aren't you the 2C person? Yes. I know. I use C's a lot. It's my name, damn it. And I also live in Cook County, which is in Chicago. I'm swimming in a sea of C's. But the real trick here when you're working through logos, this is actually an outline of, oddly enough, Cook County. This is drawn off of a circuit board. So this kind of circuit look here. This is me attempting to draw Cook County with circuits. That didn't work. This is like me giving Cook County some circuit wings, I guess. I don't know. Some of these are not going to work. The color usage here, it's important because Cook County has this issue where the circuit courts are a mess. You can't, there's all this data and you can't really parse it. So I basically have it all coming in different colors and making a messy web of information. I'm also doing something here where I'm starting with different colors and they end up on different sides and they all kind of black out in the middle. And then there's like some snowflake things and some other things. And I got this diamond, which also oddly enough makes a C. It's a mess. All right. When you're doing logo exploration, it's a holy mess. So, here's Cook County. You can kind of see where the drawing came from that ultimately became that. So back to Rebecca's logo. Rebecca's fighting her logo right now, and this is one of those things that I think we all do. I know I have fought my logo tooth and nail for years before I finally arrived at the one that I have, and I really feel like I'll probably stay there. You know, I can't really see a reason to change it. Rebecca, the one thing I like about your, and this is like a letter lockup is how we refer to this, in that much like the New York Yankees, NY, or the LA Dodgers, LA, she's combined 2 letters. Like mine don't really lock up. They mimic one another and they follow one another in shape and in direction, but they don't lock up. They never intersect. Rebecca's lock up, and I think they lock up in a very clean, classic way. So I've never really had an issue, honestly, Rebecca, with your logo the way that it is. I've always thought, like, if I was going to come in and do anything with it, I would find a way to like put some contrasting colors in to to basically have these. And I know this is going like Christmas really fast, but I would put some contrasting colors in. One of the classics that you could always do is go with the orange and blue. If you were in India, this would be a great color combination, by the way. But you could go with an orange and blue, and immediately you've got like a nice contrast. And there's lots of contrasting colors: purple and yellow, red and green. A lot of people, I think, go to the blue and orange mainly because red and green, it's Christmas, but only in certain cultures. Not in every. You have to celebrate Christmas to go to Christmas really fast. But you go to other cultures, and you can I'm sure somewhere orange and blue has meaning aside from sports teams, but I really think color could help your logo. You were asking like ways to improve it, and I don't want to poo-poo the idea. Like nothing's perfect. I'm just going to come down here and place it down here so we can kind of get away from all that junk I'm doing. Nothing is perfect. I do wonder. I do wonder if there isn't a, and as I pull it apart, it becomes like an American Bandstand sort of thing. So I don't know, without getting into the realm of like, okay, so now let's look at other forms, and the B and the R. And I'm sticking with like rubato specifically because I'm just riffing here. Sorry, a G but a B. So the B and the R, they have the ability to do some work together. They don't have to be lowercase. You can go uppercase with them if you want it to. I don't, my big issue is that when I go uppercase, it gets very like bro-ish, and I don't necessarily want that. If I'm going to lock up, I like the lowercase lockup that you have. And I also don't want to get into like, oh, you should draw like a character or something. One question that always comes up is, with mine is like, hey Chris, I closed it. Sorry, that wasn't intentional. The one question I'll get with mine is, hey Chris, why do you have a star inside of yours? And it's because I'm in Chicago. In Chicago, the Chicago Star is very popular. And a lot of people who I'm doing this Cook County court thing. That's the Chicago Star. It's not a Jewish star; it's a Chicago Star. Chicago Star has the indentation point of the shape comes in to where it makes more of an angle to the inside. It's not flat. So these are almost like 90-degree angles on the inside of the star. And then I have, this like shoots out. So it's got like a clear exit. But I use this mainly to draw attention to the fact that I'm from Chicago, and it identifies that I'm from Chicago for people who are also from Chicago. It means nothing to people who are not from Chicago. It just means that I have a star in my logo, and it's a 6-point star. And sometimes I'll go get a question about, are you Jewish? And I'm like, no, I'm not Jewish. It's Chicago Star. It's not. And if people like it because they're Jewish and they think, oh, he must be Jewish, well, that's good too. That's fine. Whatever. but I use the Chicago Star to identify for people that are in Chicago. Hey, here's somebody who is one of us. Is there a corollary for you? I don't know. It really depends on whether you would want to go there. For me, I like adding contrasting colors to your mark. We could investigate going further. I could also look at, like, if you wanted to add movement to it. And again, I'm riffing here, okay? I'm not suggesting that you actually do this. And now I've got to figure out how I want to get rid of that. Okay, so now I can get rid of the stroke. No, I can't. I cannot get rid of the stroke because it's to the center and I need it to be to the inside. And then I'm going to get rid of it. No, I cannot do that. Interesting. So, well, what I was going to do is I was going to say if you wanted to add movement to it, you could, like, give it some movement that would allow you to move this RB and, like, have it angled and moving forward. But I cannot, because of the way it's drawn, I can't just easily, I mean, I guess I could get in here with my pen tool and just kind of draw through. And again, I'm not riffing. I'm just riffing. I have no way of telling you whether you should do this or not. Actually, I'm pretty sure you shouldn't, but that's not going to keep me from trying. All right, so something like that. And what this allows you to do is take something that was, there's nothing wrong with it. Again, you brought it to me. But right now it's very upright. And I think it's right here. Yeah, there it is. It's very upright. And if you want to add some movement to it to get it to lean forward, I think I would just extend the R down. I don't necessarily think that's what you need to do, but it is an option. I kind of like it reminds me of the Nordiques. Trying to think of the sports team. I think it's like the Quebec Nordiques. Pretty sure this is not going to be it, but yeah, that's definitely not it. But it makes an N. I'm not sure what the L is. I'm not sure where the Q is either. But for some reason it has that, like, it's inspired by the 70s. I think that's the thing that I take away from your logo is it's inspired by the 70s, and I think there's some value in that. I think really color is a thing that I would use. I don't necessarily think you should do some sort of, like, reversed lockup with the R&B. Although R&B, that's interesting because R&B is like a musical genre, and your initials are R&B. R and B. So there's some more discussion that we can have around that, but by and large, I think that you have a nice mark. I wouldn't immediately move away from it. I wouldn't look at like utilizing some sort of color combination that focused on contrast. A lot of discussion of contrast this morning. I'm going to check the excuse me. Oh my God, the coronavirus. It's here. It has me. No, it doesn't have me. But it could. And that ain't nothing to joke about, kids. So, I've got a couple of calls coming up, so I'm going to bounce off of here for today's edition of the Feedback Loop. Great job, Kara. Abraham, check out the tight pairing exercises and stuff that I pointed to. Tejal, let's focus on getting your resume. I don't know. I want your resume to line up more with your site, and then I also want like 2 versions of it. I want to tighten it up in a couple of spots. I want to look at spacing. It's like the first thing you've got to have your content to have a resume. You've got that. So now let's just take the wrenches to it. And Rebecca, I like the logo. We can talk about it further, but I like the logo. I don't necessarily know that I don't know if I'd spend any cycles on that. I think you've got enough other work to do that adjusting your logo at this point is just a distraction. That's me. Okay. But without further ado, I'm Chris Courtney. I'll see you tomorrow. Take care.